Okay guys, so for our presentation we're going to talk about sports and culture. For this subject we're going to take the three main English-speaking countries, so United Kingdom, Australia and the United States. We'll look at their national sport and we'll see why it is so important to them. As I said, we'll look at the three countries. Jelmer has the US. Bart is going to talk to you about the United Kingdom and, well, I'm doing Australia. As for the content, well, we got our introduction right now. First we're going to talk about the United Kingdom. Bart's going to the United States with Jelmer. And finally I'm going to close it up with Australia. Yes? Oh. Good luck, Bart.
So my part will be the United Kingdom, and I'll tell you guys something about football, about the history and about hooliganism. The history of football in England. The first signs of football are from England, because football was originally found in England. And the first sights of it were in 1314 by Edward II, when he tried to ban it. That's when it was first registered and written down by writers in that time. He wanted to shut it down because he thought that football would contain evil spirits and they would murder the people and would leave bad effects on the country. England today has still got the oldest professional football club in the world, which is Notts County. It plays in the second league, I believe. And well, football is a national sport in England. The first modern football rules were written in 1863, and England is a country which has the most professional football clubs, which are in total 40,000. That's, I believe, the country which is on the second place is, I believe, was Italy, and that country has around 20,000. So that's a huge difference. Nowadays, the English Premier League, because that's the first league, you have the English Premier League, the Championship, League 1, League 2, League 3, and so on. We have about 8 leagues. But nowadays it's one of the most richest and most popular leagues in the entire world. A huge fan base organized. Hooliganism in England. First I'm going to read out loud the definition of football hooliganism. Football hooliganism refers to unruly, violent and destructive behaviour by overzealous supporters of association football clubs, including brawling, vandalism and intimidation. Most football clubs have a fan base, they have a certain amount of fans, but if you are a fan, usually you go to the game, buy a ticket, go to the game, watch the game and go home, but there's another level of supporting your club, and that when it comes to the part of being a hooligan. Now, every fan base has got a certain firm, and the definition of a firm in normal proper English is that it's referred to a business or to a gang member, and a hooligan firm comes close to a gang because they're a group of people who meet other firms from rivalry clubs, and they meet up and they mostly outside of the stadium, and they go fight each other because they hate each other for, in my opinion, no reason. And I have a little clip of that, and that's how serious this really is in England. The clip is from Green Street Hooligans. Have you guys seen it? I think you don't. You don't, Tom?
What?
You must
That
sing.
film is like Green Street Hooligans is like the best film ever. I think.
No, I didn't. If you like football.
Well, maybe I did, but I'm not sure.
West Ham, Tottenham.
Oh god. Hang on. Technical difficulties. One
Can you
second.
close the window?
It's pretty hot, but getting a cold.
No, but there are lots of things.
Oh, I did watch it. I think.
What was the name again?
far away fires, where the hills forever burn, at the feet of our heroes, we try hard to learn, but the lesson is lost there, in the smoke and the mud, that we are one flesh, one breath, one life, one blood. We stood by the river that ran red with strong. I stood in the killing fields where death has no name. I stood with my brothers and awaited flood.
That's one example of it. We don't play it any further because there's a casualty later on. Due to hooliganism, every year in England there are around 10 to 20 casualties because of the violence. People get killed. I believe that was. I still have some famous firms. The ones you just saw were the Millwall Bushwhackers. They're one of the most famous firms in the entire world, actually. If you actually come to Millwall, the place itself, people come outside to chat you up if they think you're not a fan, and they will actually beat you up. There's an entire documentary on YouTube if you'd like to see it. Other famous firms are the Manchester United, the Red Army, Newcastle United, the Tombs, and of course Tottenham Hotspur, the Red Army, and Queen's Park Rangers, the Bush Baby. And the ones you just saw are the GSE from West Ham United.
Oh wait, should I stop it for a second?
I'm going to talk about the United States, predominantly the most famous sport, American football, or what's known as gridiron football, and how sports or team sports work in the US. Team sports in the US are quite different from what you expect in Europe. For example, they don't have a promotion or relegation system. So the teams you see every year are the teams you will see years in the future. Like, for example, the Lakers, the Los Angeles Lakers, they are going nowhere. Even if they do badly, they will stay. Because America has a franchise system. You have the league, for example, let's take the Major League Soccer. So that's the soccer league there. And in that league there are multiple franchises, mostly 30 to 32 franchises who are divided in regions. Like the southern part of America and the western part of America each have their own region to play, because America is quite big and can't really travel around that much, because it would be a bit of a bother if you have to go to California from New York every weekend. So they basically have two divisions in, or four divisions in one league to determine who one team will play the most. One thing which is also different in the American sports system, that there is no player ownership. A team doesn't own a player. Teams cannot buy players. They have to trade players, or they will get players with the draft. The draft is also quite unique to the United States. In the draft, a team can pick a young prospect, a talented new player who comes from the college or high school system. They mostly won, well, it kind of depends who gets to pick first. in most of the leagues there for baseball and or soccer or American football. The team which did the worst that year, the previous year, gets to pick first, which leads to some controversy because some teams who had a really bad season starts to lose on purpose to get the first draft pick. And in basketball, there's a sort of lottery, and the team who wins the lottery wins the first draft pick, which also leads to some controversy. Because one team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, won the drafts 3 times in a row and 5 times in the same decades. Americans also don't really have an emphasis on European football, well, or European sports or other worldly sports. They are mainly focused on America. They don't really focus on international competitions. It's not important to them. Whereas we, as Europeans, we have the Champions League, where the biggest football teams in America compete. We have different European cups. They don't really have that in North America. The sports season for all American sports is generally the same. You first have your regular games, and the winners will enter the playoffs. The playoffs, the top 8 of the table get to play in the playoffs, and the winners of the playoffs get to play in one Champions Cup sort of thing. The most famous of these cups being the Super Bowl, which is the 4th largest sporting event in the world. The first 3 being the World Cup, the Olympic Games, and the Champions League. There's also a huge focus on, well, high school and college games. Some high schools have an attendance of 10,000 people watching the weekend games, because in a lot of states, high school talent gets drafted towards college. They will sign for college teams, and from college they will eventually sign for the big league, the NFL or the MLS. And one of the things that American sports tend to do is give, or colleges tend to do, is give scholarships to students so they play sports at a famous college. I think the college which started doing this is the College of Notre Dame, which is an American college which is famous for its college American football. And yeah, you have 2 sorts of scholarships. The first one is a walk-in. The walk-in is, they will help you partly, or if you do well, they will help you fully. And you have the full drive, they call it, full drive, and they will just pay everything for you in college as long as you play for them. American football, the biggest sport in America, who doesn't know what American football is? Everyone knows what American football is. Okay, that's good. Okay. One couple of cultural things the Americans do during their games. Americans generally have a divide in games. They have a break, they have the pre-game, this before the game, they have the mid-game break and the end game. And during these breaks, or after the game or before the game, they usually have some, well, events. And one of these most famous is the marching bands. As you can see there in the picture, that's a marching band. They usually give a show before the game or during the game. Marching bands are, well, they started from a military tradition and slowly became more associated with the sports. And they usually share the time with cheerleaders, which are also quite famous. One funny thing to note about cheerleaders, that we now think that cheerleaders are mostly female in short skirts, but back in the day, before 1920, most cheerleaders were actually male, and few women could not be cheerleaders. And they were mostly used to, well, raise or furthermore, like, do I say it? Make the crowds cheer. It's a bit for a loss of words. One other thing that Americans tend to do is sing their national anthem before the game. Some franchises even play the American anthem, the national anthem, during the mid-game or at the end of the game. And we have a video about it right here. 1 second, please.
Again, technical difficulties.
We are very sorry for the inconvenience.
When you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the brave?
Wow.
But that was my part about the US.
I think we,
Okay, so now we're going down under to Australia. Has anybody of you heard of Australian rules football?
No.
No? Well, it's sort of a version of rugby, you could say. It's played on a cricket field. This is well, how big it is. And you see this square? This square is 50 by 50 meters. So you can really see the size of the field.
50 or 15?
50. So this is half a football field, and not what we used to here in Europe. Australian football, well, it's played with 28 players per team. Each team has 3 substitutes, and you can stand wherever you want on this field, really. If the game starts, for instance, there can only be 8 players in total in this square, but for the rest of the field you're free to go wherever you want. But for instance, in European football, we see that each team starts at their own side of the field. So that's a bit different. Also, Australian football is played with this. It's a bit the same as a rugby ball or an American football. Australian football is played in 4 quarters instead of what we're used to with, for instance, European football with 2 halves. Each quarter is 20 minutes long, and there's a break in between. Let's see. On either side there are 4 poles. Like it's a bit the same as in rugby, as I said. Each pole has on the outer poles. When you put the ball through there, you'll get less points than in the middle one. And in the middle one, there are also special rules about scoring. I won't go into them because it can really get complicated with this sport. But most tackles are, you can use body checks or well, free to use, and yeah, it can be a brutal sport. But that's enough about the gameplay. Bit of history now, because in 1810 the first sports came to Australia. These were the athletics, cricket, horse racing and sailing. And these were mostly played by upper class during weekends, and only the lower class would play them on well, national holidays. So if there was a national, yeah. In 1829, the first European football, that's what I'm going to call it right now, just to make things clear. The normal football tournament was held. And the first cricket tournament was in 1838, and the first rugby tournament was in 1850. That's a bit about the Australian history concerning sports. So you can see that this country doesn't have a long history with sports, like, for instance, as Bart said, with football, that exists in the 14th century already. I don't know why that's happening. Moving on. Oh no, wait. Yeah, moving on to why is Australian football so important for the culture? There are three main factors: environment, reminders, and the values. Well, the environment, first of all. This is, well, most due to how Australia is laid out. I mean, it's a really big country, there are a lot of small towns, and people don't see each other often. For instance, if I live on a farm, my neighbor could be living 2 or 3 kilometers from me. I won't see him every day. So, during the weekends where there are well, football matches and we play cricket, for instance, with each other, we get to see each other. So it has a really big social impact on these little towns. For instance, an old man once said that if there wasn't a football club in the town or a sports center, he wouldn't see anybody anymore. It's that an impact it has. As for reminders, since you see everybody at the sports center or at the football pitch, you will remind yourself, oh, next week I'll see him again. And on Monday, for instance, you talk to your buddies at work about the match you saw on Saturday. Or it really is deeply rooted in the Australian culture. Everybody is talking about sports during the whole weekend. But as for here in Holland, we're not so used to talking about football. Yeah, with a couple of mates, we talk about football, but that's it. We don't talk about it in class or at work. But that really happens in Australia. So you're constantly reminded of the sports. And then last but not least, the values. As for values, Australians really like honesty. They love it. So, let's say, as an example, you're sitting in a bar with a mate, drinking a couple of beers, and watching a game on the TV. And someone makes a foul. So, there's a tackle that went wrong or something. You'll get pissed. Why? It's not honest to do that. Why would you hurt another player in that way? So, you talk about it, maybe he has a different opinion, and of course the whole reminders and the whole environment kick back within these values. So these three are constantly intermingling with each other. Then, of course, we have the match day. As you can see, as I already said, it is a really big pitch. Like this is the whole stadium, and here you see the 50 by 50 square. So it's immense, and that is why this is the biggest sport in Australia. There are so many people watching it. Well, at the start of a game, the players always walk through a banner. This is made by the cheerleading squads that you have there. And normally it would say like a sponsor's name, like Samsung or whatever. But sometimes it is used for well, a player's anniversary. It's his 100th match or something. So that's always at the start of a match. Then for the atmosphere. There aren't really that many chants. Like in football, we all know that people are shouting, cheering, singing sometimes in great numbers. But that doesn't happen here. Why doesn't it happen here? Well, there are no dull moments. This is action, action, action for all the minutes that they are playing. In football, there are, well, you have to wait for a goalkeeper to kick the ball or something, or there is a player crying on the pitch or something. So, you don't have it here. Yeah, maybe they'll have someone knocked out on the field, but they'll get it over with really quick. So there are no dull moments, no chants. The cheerleaders, they're, well, not really leading the cheers, as well, they want to watch the game. And they only come into action when there is a goal. Then they'll dance around.